Hello, this lecture continues on the World War. Up to this point, the lectures that you've watched, we've talked about how they got into the war, and also we talked about the Entente and the Central Powers. So really the only people involved in this war so far that we've talked about, we have in the middle, we have Germany and Austria, and on the sides we have Russia, France, and then we also have Belgium, which was in the middle, that was overtaken, and then now we have Britain. So now, that's who the major players are in this war. So this whole section, it's not supposed to be a long video, but I'm talking about some new people that are entering the war. So one of the first new people involved in the war was the Ottoman Empire. So the Ottoman Empire, they were threatened. Remember, the Ottoman Empire, prior to World War I, used to be this gigantic empire in Europe. And because of the Allied powers, so we're talking about Britain, France, Russia, they were so large also, they kind of felt threatened by the Allies. They also, what they ended up doing, this tended to be more of a Muslim empire, is that they renounced all the treaties that gave Christians privileges in the Ottoman Empire. So now they're kind of taking away all the rights that Christians have in the Ottoman Empire. So because of that, because they didn't like the Christians, that's why places like France and Britain started to get involved and wanted to, also wanted to fight the Ottoman Empire. So the Allied, and then also what happened is because of this war, they said that, in this negotiations, they're asking the Allied powers if after the war, after everything is all over, if they could take some of Russia. And the Allied powers would not promise that. They'd be like, I don't know, maybe. So the Ottoman Empire is like, okay, yeah. So, and then here's a picture of a rally in the Ottoman Empire. So what happened was that the Ottoman Empire, because of this, secretly negotiated with Germany. Germany had good diplomatic relations, so they weren't friends, but they also weren't enemies. And the Ottoman entry into the war would start Muslim uprisings in Allied colonies. So Germany wanted the Ottoman Empire because since there was such a big Muslim contingent, then maybe places like France and Britain, they could have these Muslim uprisings and help Germany win the war. They also made secret loans to Turkey, so Germany helped give money to Turkey in the Ottoman Empire. And what they would like from Ottoman Empire, like one of the good things about it, why they want to be friends, is because they would also get the Ottoman Empire's navy, which was pretty strong and is in the Black Sea, and I'll show you where that is later. So how did the Ottoman Empire officially get into this war? Well, what happened is we just talked about this Ottoman Navy, that fleet attacked some Russian ports and sank a Russian ship. So when that happened, the Allied powers were like, okay, we're declaring war on the Ottoman Empire as well. So one of the big battles that the Ottoman Empire was involved in is the battle at Sarikamish. Here's a Russian trench at Sarikamish. So this was supposed to be awesome. The Ottoman Empire is like, all right. Remember, they wanted the Russian land, so the Ottoman Empire goes to Russia, and this is the Caucasus region, and they was like, okay, let's attack the Russians in the Caucasus region. Only problem is that it was an epic fail. In that area, it was super cold, and also the Ottoman Empire couldn't get supplies and stuff to that area, so they couldn't get food, they couldn't get weapons, all that stuff. So this Ottoman Empire that's supposed to attack Russia, all of a sudden they're in this super cold place where they need more food, maybe blankets, clothes, whatever, and they couldn't get anything over there. So what was supposed to be this awesome battle, this awesome win for the Ottoman army, of 120,000 troops, they lost 80,000 of their people. So big loss for the Ottoman Empire. It's one of the biggest battles that the Ottoman Empire was involved in. Another piece that they were involved in was called Gallipoli. So Gallipoli, this is hard to explain, but this is Turkey, and here's what they call the Dardanelles Strait, this piece right here. And the great thing about the Dardanelles Strait is that it's hard to visualize this whole map, but let's just say France and Britain are all the way over here, and Russia is over here, and here's the Central Powers. If Britain and France want to give something to Russia, they would love to have this strait right here, because Britain and France could just come around, go through this little teeny tiny strait, and then they meet Russia over the Russian ports are over here. But the only problem is that again, the Ottoman Empire owns this area. Okay, so this piece right here is called the Gallipoli Peninsula, and this piece is called the Dardanelles Strait. So the Allied forces, what they did is they landed here. So France, Britain, they landed here, and they wanted to take this strait. And this would create a supply line to the Russian army. And doing so, trying to get this also, they tried to win over other countries that are in this little area, are Bulgaria, Greece, and Romania. And they said like, oh, if we take the strait, it would open up things for Bulgaria, Greece, and Romania also. So maybe they'd help us as well. So, there it is. So the Battle of Gallipoli, what happened is that the Allied forces, even though they tried to take over that strait, they were actually held at bay by the Ottoman army. And this was months of brutal battle. So for 8 months, the Ottoman forces, here's a picture, and here's a picture of the Allied forces, or the Entente, leaving the area, is because the Allies suffered 230,000 casualties. The Ottoman army suffered worse. They lost 300,000, but they kept the strait for 8 months. And the great thing about this, maybe you're saying like, okay, who wins, who loses? The great thing about this battle is that because it took so long, it took 8 months because they thought they were going to get this straight, is that the British and the Russian forces that were supposed to be in other fronts, like the Western Front and the Eastern Front, now they had to focus on this battle at Gallipoli, and it made them stronger. It made the Central Power stronger in other places. So, one of the things about the Ottoman Empire was that one of the downsides of it was there was a genocide. If you don't know what a genocide is, it's a mass killing of a group of people. And they had a Armenian genocide in the Ottoman Empire as well. What happened was that Turkish leaders claimed that Armenians were sympathetic to Russia. So remember, Russia is part of the Allies and the Central Powers. But Turkish leaders, again, in the Ottoman Empire, said like, hey, the Armenians, they're friends with, or they like the Russians. So what happened? They made these orders and they deported all Armenians, or they were killed. So you can see some of these pictures from the genocide. One of the genocides that most people don't really hear about. Obviously, we hear about the Jewish genocide. We're talking about 500,000 to 1.5 million Armenians estimated to have died just because they were thought, or they were just accused of being sympathetic to the Russians. So that's country number one. Country number one that entered the war, Ottoman Empire. Country number two, Bulgaria. So Bulgaria, here they are, this red star. They wanted to regain territory again. So they just had these wars. I want to say it's the Balkan Wars. And they lost a lot of territory. And they wanted it back. So because they had the Balkan Wars, they had a sizable army. They were experienced. They were good. And the Central Powers said that if you join us, we can give you the Serbia territory. And that sounded pretty good to Bulgaria. So Bulgaria declared war on Serbia, and this allowed the Ottoman Empire to focus on the Battle of Gallipoli. So what was cool is that, remember, Serbia is also part of the Allied powers, not a big part of the Entente, but Serbia, if you remember, is part of that Allies. And because Bulgaria entered and fought Serbia, now all the other countries like Austria, Germany, and now the Ottoman Empire can focus just on the Battle of Gallipoli thanks to Bulgaria. So Bulgaria didn't really do much other than make sure that they didn't have to spread themselves too thin. Another country is Italy. So Italy, they had territory disputes with Austria-Hungary. So here's Austria-Hungary in yellow, and here's Italy. And where the dispute was is right here. And what happened was that they were also afraid of the British and French navies. Remember, they're super strong. So here's Britain, here's France, had very strong navies. And the reason why Italy felt so exposed and vulnerable to the navy is that if you look at Italy, it looks like a boot. It has a very long coastline. So if Italy ever had to defend itself from a navy, it'd be so weak because they'd have to spread so thin across this whole coastline. So that was actually one of the weaknesses of Italy, is that the coastline was so large, they can't defend it. So they're like, okay, I don't want to piss off the Brits or the French, because if they do, like we're gonna be killed. And then the Allies, they promised Italy, if you join us, we'll give you the part from Austria. So if we beat Austria, you can have that piece that you wanted back. So Italy then entered the war. How did Italy enter the war? Well, the government, which was once wanting to be neutral, was now taken over by a right-wing group, and they took control. And because of that, they agreed to what the Allies were saying and what they were offering. So May 23, 1915, Italy now declared war on Austria-Hungary. Only problem with Italy is that they were under-equipped. Their army was only 1.2 million troops, And again, because of their super long coastline, they had a pretty bad disadvantage against Austria. So, this is going to be a little bit past your reading, but I just want to introduce it so you can see what's going on. One of the battles that you'll read next is called the Battle of Verdun. Okay, in this battle, Germany attacks France. So let me tell you the story of the Battle of Verdun. What happens in the battle is that there was this town called Verdun in France. What Germany wanted to do was lure them into the city of Verdun that Germany had occupied. And the French army, France, was like, you know, we don't really need the city. The city doesn't do much for us. But I think if we got this city back, it would build morale for all the people in France. So Germany kind of lured them, kind of like set them off that, you know, we could be attacked at this battle. So what happened was is that France started to go back to attack this town, but the Germans fired a massive artillery bombardment onto France. We're talking about massive. So we're talking about 1,200 guns. It went on for 10 months. 10 million artillery shells were fired. This is this gigantic battle. The results, we lost 362,000 French and 336,000 German casualties. Big losses for the battle. The thing about this battle that was interesting about it is that also, even though so many people were lost, these deaths weren't as bad as it could have been. So we're talking about there was 10 million shells fired, right? So many bullets were fired. And what ended up happening is that because, you know, later on in this war we've got better trench systems, the Germans had gas masks. Just the way that this war has gone on, Germany and France have gotten better technologically in the war. It took a while for people to actually, for massive numbers of people to die because even though we were firing so much, people weren't dying. I mean, in the big picture, there's a lot of deaths, but it could have been a lot worse. Here's a picture. I don't know if you remember me telling you this from the last video, something called No Man's Land. So if you remember, again, this is the last part of the video. If there was a trench, so this is the French trench, and this is the German trench. The part in the middle of the trenches is called No Man's Land. That's where they had the barbed wire and the landmines and stuff like that. So the Allied troops tried to cross it over, tried to attack for Verdun. Eventually, France, in this battle, in actuality, didn't really move the meter for anybody. I think Germany got a little bit more lands because of this, maybe like 4 or 5 miles. But this was really one that Germany really wanted to have because they had this grand plan, but they didn't really gain much out of it. So thanks for watching the video. I'll continue this in the next one and hear about the thrilling conclusion of World War I. Thanks for watching.